I was thinking, so we FaceTime sometimes with the kids, and we're all staying home. I haven't seen I've seen your face via FaceTime, my parents' face via FaceTime, but other than, I haven't seen in real life, IRL, anybody except Hal, Poppy, Mila, Henry, in 14 days. That's it.
That's insane. And I was just thinking about, like, just the people who are kind of all by themselves, you know?
Yes.
And I got to tell you, my mom is saying so positive. She's by herself at home, but she's like, hey, look, I'm outside at the water. Like, she's by herself taking selfies, and there's nobody around her. She talks about how beautiful the water is. She says she brings her coffee with her in the mug I gave her, and she'll take a picture of it. And she actually, we interviewed Simone Biles, and she talked about how she's staying in touch with her mom. And one of the things her mom does is she makes Simone a home-cooked meal and puts it at the end of her driveway so that Simone can pick it up and have a meal. And my mom just wrote me a text. It's so funny. She goes, I was watching Simone, and what a great idea. I think I'm going to do that for Hannah and Ella. I'll make them a meal, and I'll leave it on the corner, and they can come and pick it up. And I thought...
You know, it's so funny because I was thinking about you. We talked about your mom a little, and you see your mom at least once a month, right?
Yes.
Or more. So, I mean, it's hard. Like, you must miss her. And I think that's one of the things that's been tricky about this is that, yes, your immediate family. I mean, I don't know if I've been so close to Henry ever because we're in it, you know, the two of us. But I haven't seen my parents, you know, and I miss them.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a very real thing. I wonder.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I mean, for my mom, we try to FaceTime. Haley could take the phone and go running down the hall, and my mom's just tickled pink, and she's just happy to have her like that. But my mom is such an important part of our lives, and I think you realize, too, it's underscored in this moment. And if you're one of those people who called your parents like once every 2 weeks or visited every 6 months, I think we kind of understand what it felt like to be them, to be by yourself and not to have people checking in and visiting and calling all the time. And I think it's kind of waking us up. It's like we got to make sure that we are always, you know, in close touch. How are you keeping up with your mom and dad? Like, what are y'all doing FaceTime or?
Yeah, so we did a big family FaceTime with my whole family. And this is, you know, so it's really interesting. It was really fun because I have a lot of uncles and aunts, and we had a couple questions. Just what have you been doing to kill time, to be happy, to be joyful, and give us an update on your family. And we all went around, and each little family gave the update. And from my cousin Jebby, who told us on FaceTime that he's pregnant, or his wife. No, he's not pregnant. That would be really crazy. But his wife, Sandra, is pregnant. And, you know, to telling us about who's working and who's not working. And somebody got a new job and graduating school. Somebody's becoming a doctor. You know, when you have those conversations, you realize that you're desperately missing the people you love.
Yes.
And yesterday I did a Read with Jenna book club meeting with Lily King, who wrote the last book, and all of these women who I'd never met. And at one point, I found myself, and this isn't surprising, but weeping when Lily was talking about missing her mother who'd passed away and how it was the inspiration for this book. And when we talked about it, I said to them, I'm so embarrassed, but I would realize this is the first time I've had a conversation about something other than diapers or what we're eating for dinner or who's going to feed how or what, you know, when the kid's Zoom is in a month. I was used to talking about books twice a week, and I hadn't talked about books in 3 weeks, and I just cried in front of these women I didn't know, and it felt so good.
But by the way, you just said something that's so important because we are having two conversations. One is family business, and the other is what's going on with this pandemic. Those are the two conversations. There's nothing that ever deviates. Every conversation is about that. And maybe that's something we can all do more of. Like, have a conversation, reach out to someone, friends or whomever, and make a point, like, let's talk about something else. Not this. Yeah, not this.
I have to tell you, doing this was kind of because we were doing a story on reading and how this resurgence of reading. People are desperate for falling in love with books because it's an escape from reality. And as you said, people that are alone. My mom was an only child, and she used to say, I didn't have that many. I had friends to play with, but I wanted a brother and sister, but I had books.
Yeah.
So she had these friends, and Joe from Little Women and whoever else. So if you are alone, like, first of all, you got us.
Yeah.
And second of all, open a book. And call and FaceTime a friend or call a friend and talk about that book, because I can't tell you how much joy it brought me yesterday.
By the way,
It's shocking.
that's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant idea.